As depths increase, the pressure of drilling fluids is used to counter deep-sea pressures and depths, and the pockets of high pressure and high temperature gases. When these gases are not contained, they result in dangerous oil well blowouts, which emit much oil, produced water, and pressurized natural gas, which is also referred to as methane. For example, in 1969, the Santa Barbara blowout spewed 100,000 gallons of crude oil and was an ecological disaster. It flooded local beaches and killed thousands of plants and animals, and there's a picture of the oil spill in 1969. This pales in comparison to the Gulf of Mexico blowout in 1979, which spewed 140 million gallons of crude oil into the ocean. Although safety of offshore drilling has significantly improved, offshore drilling can still be disastrous today. Weather, tectonic events, equipment failure, transportation accidents, human error, and deliberate unethical decisions still make oil spills a reality today. Take, for example, the BP oil spill in 2010 that destroyed the Gulf region. Another disturbing impact of offshore drilling is the waste that it produces. These wastes include produced water, drilling fluids, diesel emissions, and chemicals associated with the various aspects of offshore drilling. By volume, 98% of the waste produced from offshore drilling is produced water. Produced water with estimates of 480,000 barrels a day. Produced water is a mixture that consists of hydrocarbons, naturally occurring radioactive elements, dissolved solids, and chemical additives which are used during drilling. This can lead to aquatic toxicity. Drilling fluids are of environmental concern because their potential toxicity in large volume that is released to the ocean. According to the article, Oceans on the Edge, the quick influx and concentration of oil spills makes them very harmful to localized marine wildlife and environment. For example, here you can see the wildlife after the BP oil spill in 2010. They're coated in oil, which is very disgusting and sad. Plants and animals become coated in oil, perish. Birds die from hypothermia. Turtles die after ingesting oil-coated food, and much, much more of the like occur after an oil spill. When released into the marine environment, oil, produced water, and drilling fluids impact an entire population by disrupting the food chain and reproductive cycle. This can cause the abundance and diversity of marine life to decline. Furthermore, greenhouse gases are generated directly by offshore drilling. In the United States alone, in 2007, 22 million metric tons of carbon dioxide were released in the atmosphere as a result of offshore drilling. It also has human health impacts according to the National Environmental Health Association's position on offshore drilling. Workers, victims of oil spills, and rescue workers are exposed to a host of chemical hazards. As exposure increases, impacts can include hypokalemia, renal toxicity, and cardiovascular and neuromuscular effects. Now that I've discussed why offshore drilling is a bad idea, I will provide some alternatives to offshore drilling, and there are many of these. In the article, 5 alternatives that make more sense than offshore drilling. Some of the significant ones are listed. The first one is simple. It's to increase the fuel economy standard. This is the most important and most cost-effective way to reduce petroleum consumption. If the fuel economy would be raised from 23 to 35 miles per gallon, 1.2 billion barrels and $150 billion would be saved yearly. Hybrid electric vehicles, also known as HEVs, would reduce petroleum consumption in the United States alone by 1.2 billion barrels a year if 50% of the cars on the road by 2030 were electric. Plug-in hybrids, also known as PHEVs, are currently constrained by cost and technological advancements. However, in the future, they can potentially save 1.6 billion barrels of oil if they account for 50% of the vehicles on the road. Cellulosic ethanol, not to be confused with corn ethanol, is produced from the fiber of plants. It would reduce emissions 87 to 94% when compared to gasoline. It is predicted to produce 133 million barrels a year by the year 2030, which would save consumers $5.6 billion every year. In this graph, you can see the impacts of offshore drilling. It compares an oil-free ocean to oil exploration, oil drilling, and oil spills. When one looks at the oil-free ocean just compared to oil drilling, just drilling alone releases chemicals into the water that reduce the wildlife in the area. However, if an oil spill occurs, there's inevitable and lasting pollution, and it almost kills off all the wildlife in the affected area, and it has long-lasting effects. As a response to the executive order, the governors of California, Oregon, and Washington released the joint statement. The Trump administration has chosen to forget the utter devastation of past offshore oil spills to wildlife and to the fishing, recreation, and tourism industries in our states. And we must, they've chosen to ignore the science that tells us our climate is changing, and we must reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. This was taken from the Congressional Digest. Even though offshore drilling is an efficient way to produce large amounts of energy, there are many realistic alternatives, and it is not worth the risk. All of you ought to sign the petition to protect our oceans from offshore drilling on change.org. It is the first step to reversing Trump's detrimental executive order. Grace, did you want to email it to me?
Okay, Chris, how did that go for you?
Like, not the best, not the worst, kind of in the middle.
Kind of in the middle?
Yeah.
Okay. What was best about it? What did you like about it?
Speaking up here was easier, but just since the speech was longer, it was a lot harder to, like, try to speak more extemporaneously and memorize everything and be comfortable with it.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you very, very much. That's it, right? Yeah? Okay. Do note that I'm requiring everybody to, if you're not in Chris's group, to do an evaluation form. If you're not in his group, if you're not in his group. And Grace, did we get it?
Hasn't come through yet.
Hasn't come through yet?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you want to go ahead and
Sure.